Hey friends, I'm Kelly Carpenter and I'm here to review Math UC. This is a curriculum that was new to me this year, and it was something that I decided to do with my boys once I learned a little bit more about how it actually functions. So it is a conceptually based math. They're really concerned about you basically learning how to do something forwards and backwards as opposed to just rote memorization, which is something that I feel like is really important when it comes to math, and why so many kids I think eventually struggle with math because they kind of just memorize what they need to know for that skill set for that week or two, and then down the road forget it, and then they have to do the next level the next year, and then they're like, I don't remember what I learned last year, and it's kind of like a lot of relearning. And so as someone who myself as a student struggled, I think, to sometimes understand why something functioned the way that it did, and I only kind of knew, well, that's just what you do. You plug this in, you do this, you do that, and that's how it works. But I couldn't explain to you why. I learn and remember based off understanding why. So if you have kids like that as well, I think Math UC is fantastic. So I'm going to show you here. Actually, probably should have cleaned this up before I brought it, but I'm going to show you the different components and then talk you through it. So they have a placement test on their website. I do recommend answering those questions and doing that placement test for your kids. It's more so just asking, can they do these skills? Do they know how to do X, Y, and Z, etc. So for my kids, this might be surprising to some people, but I had a kindergarten and third grader who both placed into the same skill set, which is alpha. Primer is technically the first one. So if you have a kindergarten to preschool, you probably will end up with them in primer, maybe even first grade. But my kindergartner had the skill set to go ahead and hop into alpha. Alpha is technically the second level, but as you can see, it is single digit addition and subtraction. Now, the reason my third grader placed into this is because while he was doing more complicated tasks and was heading into multiplication, one of the things he was not strong at was looking at a word problem and taking that word problem, translating it to a math problem, and then solving it. So if it was, Susie had 6 apples and Alex had 4 apples, and their teacher, their mom came and took away 2 apples, and then on Tuesday they went back and they had this and this and this, and then they had, you know what I'm saying? And then, okay, how many apples did Susie have left after 2 weeks of going to the farmer's market, and blah, 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 blah. My oldest was still kind of like, ooh, what? And that is a skill that they actually, if they can't do that, they place them into this. So it is a fundamental skill set. So just kind of be aware of that. But again, go to the website, use that as a reference. So that is why. Now, I would say probably about halfway through the year, he could have accelerated into the next level. But I, as his mom, just decided to see the course, and then he may accelerate through maybe 2 levels of math this year. We'll see. So we got the next levels. With that being said, I like that it builds upon concepts. So what you get, well, if you purchase them, they have, you can kind of decide how you want to purchase and what you want to do. We kind of piecemealed it together through our local homeschool store and then purchasing online. So this is the instruction manual, okay? So they have an instruction manual. I gotta be honest, I have not used the instruction manual. And I think part of the reason is because you also can buy the DVD. So the DVD is where you have the lessons, and the lessons are usually 5 to 10 minutes max. And they correspond to each chapter. So for us, I would just sit down and watch the video with them, and then we would go from there. And I never really felt like I needed this. So take that for what it is. You might want this. I rather watch the videos. So, you don't necessarily, but I do think these come in a set, if I'm not mistaken. I bought them in a set from our local homeschool shop used. So that's why I have both of them, but I did never need it. Now, maybe in higher levels of math, I would have wanted the instruction manual, but this is obviously very basic math that I didn't feel like I needed it for. So you have those. You have a testing booklet. Again, up to you if you want this. I did want to test my kids and also kind of have that social proof if you ever get audited. We live in South Carolina, so you do have to keep track of your kids' stuff if you choose option 3. There are 3 different homeschool options here in our state, and for tracking purposes, I thought it would just be good to have the test, and then also just good to be able to make sure that they're really absorbing it and getting the lessons. So there's a test booklet for the kids. Obviously, this is one that they would write in. And then there's the student workbook. So I would say the test one is very optional. The student workbook is what you're gonna want. This is what has all of the worksheets for every single chapter in it. And so I'll give you some examples. And then the last thing I will say, I should have brought it upstairs, but I did not, is the, oh, and there's pictures in here, okay, is the manipulatives, but let me finish saying what I was gonna say. So in here, they go through systematic review, and they have like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. It goes like up to maybe H of review. So it's a lot of worksheets. So I would say what I like about it too is that you can kind of go at your kids' pace. So if you feel like they've learned a concept, maybe they'll only do 5 of the worksheets out of that chapter, or maybe they'll do 20 of them if they're really struggling. So I do like that you can kind of, again, accelerate them at the pace that they are gaining these concepts. And they give you lots of worksheets. So you can see just a basic worksheet here. And on that side, so they've got word problems in here. They've got, you know, everything that they need. They also have some that are like this, where they, it kind of emulates the manipulatives that you use, and they've got some coloring and things like that. I'm just kind of flipping through my youngest, all of these worksheets that we have done, but just to give you an example. So they're definitely varied. A lot of them are also repetitive because they're learning the same skill over and over. Then probably the biggest expense is buying the manipulatives you need. Again, I went to a local homeschool store. I would recommend trying to get them used if you can, because you can get them a lot cheaper. They also do have digital manipulatives if you don't mind your kid being on screens. I would prefer the manual ones because my kids are visual learners too. But let me kind of give you an example. So it's a box with a bunch of different blocks that look like this. And so he heavily spends time, the teacher and the creator of this, going through and teaching kids how to manually look at things, learning the names of the different sets of blocks and the colors of them, and then learning, okay, this is how you take 1 and you add it to 3, you put these together, it looks like a 4, etc. So it's a lot of that. And he really wants them to understand that, especially because these concepts build on each other. So eventually they'll be doing multiplication with the manipulatives. And I do feel like that super helped my kindergartner, like so much so. Again, if you're a visual learner, it just will help you actually getting to see that and physically count and move things, etc. My older child, he didn't really need it as much, but I know he will once he gets into multiplication and such. So there is a manipulative set as well. So I personally like that you have the kind of manual visual. You also have the option to do it online. And then I love just how fluid the set is. So I like that. I kind of felt, I grew up on Saxon math, no dissing to Saxon, but it very much so is like 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and you kind of, every lesson builds and it changes things. And I feel like you can't skip lessons, you can't move forward, because it's not really built around conceptual things. It's built around, like, you have to know how to do this with decimals, or you have to know how to do this with fractions, and you can't go forward or backward until and whereas this is like concepts. So they're learning what it means just to add things together. And so once they kind of get the concept of adding things together, AKA single digits, you can just go, okay, let's just go ahead and let's skip 3 lessons, because you've got this. Like you've learned 1 through 10 and you've nailed that. So let's and adding those together. So let's just go ahead and skip forward 4 lessons and get where you need to be. Whereas I feel like any other math, you cannot do that. So I have been really, really pleased with that piece. I feel like this allows you to really move at the pace of your child from a mathematic perspective, much more so than any other math that I ever experienced as both a homeschooler and a kid who went to private school and all these different things. So I highly rate this. We just went and bought the next 2 levels for my kids. We're going to continue on with it. I will say, I don't have experience. I have experience moving a 3rd grader who was not, he was doing, this is the other reason why we went slow with him. He was doing, what is that math called? Singapore math. So he went to a classical school for 3 years and he was doing Singapore math, which I'm not a fan of. No offense if you like it. And so we kind of had to de-school him with the Singapore. And that was another reason why I wanted to just start him where he needed to be. And then I knew I could accelerate him once he was kind of caught up, because he was so used to math being done so differently. So I will say, if you have a kid who's like fourth, fifth, sixth grade, I can't really, speak to how, well they will, kind of de-learn and relearn, but I do have a third grader who had 3 years of different learning of math, who transitioned very well. I would say do the placement test, place them where you think they need to be, and then you can always go back and go back a level if you need to, or go forward a level. Because again, it's like they're not behind with this math. It's just which concepts are you on? And I love that about it. So it's not like, oh, I have to be able to do third grade math. It's like, no, just what level are you on? Are you at additions and subtractions? Are you at double digit addition and subtractions? Are you at multiplications? Are you at fractions and decimals? And that's where you go. So I love that. So there's no feeling of like, oh, I'm behind, or, oh, I can't do what I should be able to do for my grade. And I also think from a social emotional standpoint, that's also really positive too. So if you have any questions about this, I hope this has been helpful to just hear a little bit about it, because there's just not a lot out there necessarily about this, and this is a very, very different math. If you have any questions, like I said, leave them in the comment section. If you want to follow me and our homeschool journey and just get to know me a little bit more, at Kelly Carpenter Wellness on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Like and subscribe, please. I would love to, just build up this community. That's my hope, to have a community full of moms who are passionate about the same things, or trying to do the same things. Let me know if you have any questions. I love to interact, and I will be interacting below.